Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the McShin Foundation's award-winning podcast, Recovery Podcast, Get in the Herd. Today is May 11th, 2021, and we have in the studio, John and I are sitting here, John Shinholser, Nathan Mitchell sitting here. Welcome, everybody. We've got two guests from Oregon Recovers, who have other organizations they work for out in Oregon, who are here to talk about Measure 110 and its effects and anything you got going on about that. I know John's got a lot of questions. I know I've got a lot of questions. And I know you two, just from the little conversation we've had, it's going to be a fun little conversation here today. So welcome to Eric Martin and to Tony, I'm going to say it, Vezina?
That'll work.
That'll work?
That'll work.
Tony, you want to introduce yourself and tell us who you're with and what you're doing here?
Yeah, sure. I'm Tony. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I'm coming up on 9 years. Wow. I am part of Oregon Recovers, volunteer, board of director member and founding member of it. And that's like kind of like a statewide RCO that focuses mostly on, advocacy and systems transformation. In my primary job, I run a recovery community organization called 4D Recovery, and we have 3 recovery centers, and we do lots of different services and advocacy, leadership development, housing and stuff. And I've been doing that for a while. And then I'm on Eric's board, so I'm kind of like Eric's boss. And he does all the certification stuff for addiction counselors. I'll let him introduce himself. And then what else do I do? I do trainings and stuff for peers and consulting. And, I just try to make the world a better place, for people in recovery, and then just in general in the community. A big part of my recovery is service and stuff. And so totally pumped and honored to be on the show. I know a little bit about John and you guys, and I've, watched the videos and done stuff. So just really honored that you would even have us here today. And I really appreciate it.
Great to have you. Thanks again. Eric, welcome to the show. I hear the accrediting part right there, and so that immediately gets me interested in a lot of different things and your interaction with the state. Are you a state employee?
No, we're a private constituent-run certification board, which is, about half the certification boards in America and half are government-run. But as a private constituent board, we certify addiction counselors, addiction peers, unlicensed mental health workers, and we have about 10,000 certified members.
Wow. Now, you are both a part of this Oregon Recovers, and I know that you guys have been part of the conversation as the first parts of Measure 110 and the grants are being dispersed. Am I correct on that? And you are part of that conversation. How's it going?
You want to take a stab, Eric? You want me to take a stab? What do you think, man?
You go ahead.
Well, personally, I was opposed to Measure 110, not on principle or philosophy, but on, design and application, but, it passed. And so now we're in a place where the money's starting to go out the door. And, the problem is in Oregon is that, we're not really using a plan in what we're doing. There's a lot of good people, trying to do good things, and there's funding sources and stuff, but the state doesn't really help guide the whole system, in a way where we understand what actually we need, along the continuum of substance misuse with like prevention, intervention, treatment, long-term recovery support. Like, what do we need? And then how are we getting there? And are we tracking outcomes to make sure that our efforts are efficacious, but, so there's that's, what I'm concerned about. And, I'm involved in helping move the system along, most specifically with my recent appointment to the Alcohol and Drug Policy Commission and my election as the chair. But then, on the other hand, there's the argument that the system, and peers and long-term recovery support are about to get a bunch of money. That's going to go out and to help people. So I get both sides. I get both sides of it. I'm a recipient, and my organization is a recipient 4D of some of the funding, and so we're going to do what we can. But I think one of my most immediate concerns is that Measure 110 decriminalized possession, and that's a good thing from a kind of moral perspective. But, you know, from a practical perspective of getting people to engage in services, it kind of leaves this big hole, you know, and the rhetoric or intention of the measure was to move addiction over to public health and healthcare. But the truth about it is that healthcare, in my opinion, doesn't do that good of a job of engaging with people who have, you know, substance use disorder and helping motivate them to get into treatment. At least that's what I see here in Oregon. Like if you go to the emergency room and you're like in high acuity, you know, like of like meth addiction or something, you know, or poly substance use, and you're acting like wild, they're going to call the police on you probably, instead of like, hey, let's immediately get you into detox and then to treatment and stuff. Like, so there's a lot of work that has to be done. And so now, you know, we're trying to develop new intervention and engagement systems and techniques, you know, to help make sure that people who are using and who can't stop, you know, they're getting met somewhere. There's some intersection happening where they're being challenged to change.
Hey, let me jump in here for a minute. Hey, this is John Shinholser, president and co-founder of McShin, and plus an old timer in this space. But so how cooperative is the existing healthcare agency, the tax-funded healthcare system? How are they excited to have organ recovery in the mix here to help pick up the load, or is there some friction there? Either one of y'all can answer that.
Go ahead, Eric.
Well, I think to some extent they, you know, they're not even aware that we exist as an entity. And Tony is exactly right. So, John, you know, we've all seen your movie where you go into the in-jail intervention programs and you talk about how all these addicts and alcoholics are all pooled up in one place. Well, you know, the trend here in Oregon is to move away from a criminal justice model and an incarceration model to more of a harm reduction model, and which means that just pretty much leaves the healthcare system. And so that's sort of the mantra that's happening in Oregon, is that we need to see this as a public health disorder versus a criminal justice disorder. But we don't really have the systems in place inside of the healthcare system. So you know, over the last 5 years, healthcare agencies have been challenged to do more screening, but it's going to take substantially more than just asking people, you know, half a dozen questions, you know, when you see them in a doctor's office, to motivate people for change and to get people engaged into the treatment and recovery system.
Well, here's what I'm seeing here. And like in Virginia, for example, in the Richmond area, we're 1 million plus population. We have over 1,000 sober beds spread out amongst 5 good RCOs and a bunch of mom and pop sober living. We have 312-step meetings. So the point I'm making is we are engaging regularly and can drove these people into connection to recovery, but it's the funding piece that we lack. You know, we're still pretty much self-funded. We do get a little bit of help trickling down, but the existing state agencies and county agencies, they continue to resist valuing and utilizing us. And we know exactly what we need to do, how to do it. We can do it today. We don't have to wait around for 15 committees and 5 years to go by. And I'm seeing that through Oregon a little bit from a distance. And don't get me wrong, I've been following you guys for years, and you're the closest thing we got to the Portugal model is up in Oregon right now. And I think Maine's going to come next. And it's just amazing that you're in the position to do it. But I suspect you're getting a ton of pushback from all the decision makers, the special interests. They're clogging up the pipeline, so to speak. And do you see a way to break through that and get things moving? That's my big question.
Well, you know what? So I think what I've seen since I got into this work, you know, I got into 40, and for you guys' knowledge, like Eric's like my mentor. You know, I kind of talk smack to him, but he's been like my mentor, and that's why I invite him on today, because he has like just the most knowledge. But
with the power couple, baby.
Yeah, man, I'm just trying to be like my big brother Eric, you know. But you know, I think it's important to honor, you know, our predecessors and stuff. But So there's a will to start to fund recovery support, right? But what I see the system not understanding is that, like, we need assertive outreach and engagement. Like, if you're gonna say that, it is okay to use drugs, like, and I'm not against that, right? And there's people who are gonna use drugs and they're gonna be cool. You know what I mean? Like, they're gonna use and then they're gonna stop, or they can use recreationally or whatever. But then there's people who can't, and they get hijacked and they can't stop and they ruin their entire lives. And they need strong intervention and engagement, right? Methods to help them change. I did, you know what I mean? I see a lot of other people. And the criminal justice used to provide that break and that stop for people, but we got rid of that. But we didn't build anything and replace to it, And so I think what a lot of people kind of fantasize about, who maybe aren't like in addiction recovery, is creating these systems. Like Measure 110 was going to create these addiction recovery centers where they thought people were just going to come show up to, just by themselves.
Take boots on the ground. You got to go out in the community. You got to engage
Exactly.
with people, with peers with lived experience.
Exactly.
And we're going to catch half of them, and half of them may never come. And yeah, we get that, but it's the funding streams that is always the boogaboo,
So they're doing a lot of funding here. They're using SAP block grant dollars to invest in RCOs. They're using SOR funds to invest in RCOs. They have a service element 63 that they use with alcohol, and wine dollars. They're using marijuana money from.
So you have a capacity development issue going on right now. That's the problem. You got the funding, you got the willingness, you got you guys, you got people. You just can't build it quick enough. Is that the problem?
Well, that's part of the problem, and we haven't developed those systems inside of healthcare. And, John, as you're probably familiar with SBIRT and the national movement around screening, brief intervention, and referral to treatment, that probably just isn't substantial enough to make an adequate dent in the problem. Now, you bring up a good point about the recovery housing. So we have basically 4,400 recovery beds in the Portland metropolitan area. When you include recovery housing and sort of funded housing choice through Central City Concern, so we've got a lot of recovery beds, but most of the recovery beds that happen through recovery housing are not funded. So
they're a lot of the problem. I mean, that's the nature of the beast. We got the solution. It's alive and active today, but it's these bureaucrats and politicians, for whatever reason, they listen in the special interest, and you guys ain't it. We're not it,
Well, that's true. And the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, they just I was working on a project with them and LAPA, and we just put together this model state legislation for funding recovery housing. So I'll email that to you.
Miracle happening in Virginia right now. We got this incredible SOR manager, and he sees the value in the sober living. Man, that guy's working overtime to drive those dollars today to take care of that little gap y'all seem to have. So, but I do see a lot of bureaucracy really hindering you guys.
Well, yeah, I think there is, but I've seen a shift. When I first started, running 4D and I was trying to get funding and stuff, I was happy to get a $90,000 grant, and then, over the course of 5 years, I was able to increase that one grant to, $300,000, and in the course of the last 2 years, and really the last year, I've been able to write grants and procure about $3.5 million for a variety of RCOs, including 4D, but then we've taken on fiscally supporting some culturally specific RCOs, and the state's actually dumping a lot of money into peer services and stuff. Now, going back to the capacity issue, that's what I see moving forward is, like, are we going to have enough workers to meet the demand, and are we going to have a plan to make sure that what we do is effective? Because what we have right now is just a free-for-all, and we have a nonprofit market that's really competitive, right? Behavioral health market that's really competitive. Everybody's going after the funding for their individual thing, which is the nature of business, right? But there isn't some sort of body that's kind of overseeing everything, being like, okay, we need some more money here, less here, oh, these people need something. And so that's what Oregon Recovers has been trying to do over the last 4 years, is build up authority over the system to regulate it and make sure that it's operating effectively and meeting the needs of all Oregonians, if that makes sense.
Do you have a statewide organ recovery? You got people from all over the state piling on.
Yep. Yeah. We have an incredible movement out here, man. We're doing a really amazing
Nathan,
stuff.
what are you thinking? Nathan's over here deep in thought, man.
Well, my thinking, of course, is, how does Oregon relate to Virginia? And I'm looking, you guys have roughly half our population. I think it's like 4.2 million in Oregon, something like that. We're like roughly 8.7, I think, in Virginia. And I'm looking at the election results of the ballot measure. And Robert brings up the question, the civil commitment process. What, the ballot initiative passed with 58% of the vote. So that's a pretty good margin right there. How is the public how is the public responding to this so far? And what my biggest question though really is, Tony, in an ideal world, if you could have recrafted this legislation the way you want it, what would you have changed about it? How would you have made it different? Because if we're going to bring something here to Virginia, we want to see.
So what they did in Portugal is they built up all the support systems, years before they decriminalized, and then they developed an alternative way to do intervention, right, and referral to treatment. So they developed these dissuasion commissions, and they're kind of like drug courts, where if you get caught with drugs, you got to go and like talk to this dissuasion commission, and they're made up of like a social worker and somebody with a legal background and a healthcare worker or something, and then they can threaten you with certain penalties. Like they could take away your license, they could take away your occupational license, driver's license, they could give you fines, you know what I mean? And they would say, okay, we're going to do this stuff to you unless you go to treatment, right? And people would go to treatment, they would go to treatment, and it was set up so that they could go right to treatment, But in Oregon, we didn't really do that. We decriminalized, and then we're going to use the funding to build the system afterwards. And so in the intermediate part of it, it's like, who's getting lost in translation? You know what I mean? And not getting a referral to treatment. Because if you look at, national data around referral to treatment, about 33% come from individual, like family, a person just going whatever. And then 33% come from criminal justice, but only about 7 to 10% come from healthcare professionals. And so where are we losing some of that 33%? We haven't built up anything else. And what happens to people when they're not being intervened on? Now, the criminal justice system has tons of problems. I don't think it's the right place, but I just wish we could have done things differently. And so in Oregon Recovers, what we were trying to do is create a plan, which we did at the state level, gain consensus around the state from all the stakeholders, the healthcare providers, the payers, legislators, bureaucrats, the community, people in recovery, our allies, and then go get an alcohol tax, because we have the lowest one in the nation, and fund the whole system, right? Build the whole system up, prevention, intervention, all that, and then decriminalize and have restorative justice.
Eric hit on the Holy Grail just a minute ago, whether you know it or not. You got 4,000 sober beds in Portland alone. If those operators knew that bed fee was going to be covered, then they would retain those people. And then if you double your capacity, that's the engagement build-up capacity that needs to take place. The more sober homes you got, the more house leaders you got, the more, and they're more valuable than a healthcare worker in most cases. And Dr. Kelly's study shows that. So
right.
What's happening, and it's happening all over America. These special interest-driven healthcare agencies, they do not want to let the recovery person into the mix, or they just don't trust them, they don't believe them, and they're threatened by their existence. 50% of our addiction can be mitigated by people who live recovery at a low-level regulation level. It doesn't have to be some high-dollar degree, and that's the problem all over. And y'all are living proof of that. But
they want to. There's a big push here to fund, SROs and housing first and harm reduction housing. They spend quite a bit of money on it here in Portland, and then they overlook the sober residences.
Well, that's the most critical piece. I mean, we're the ones with the lived experience, with the hope shot, with the vision and the pathway, and we guide these people through the process. So, I say it over and over and over. Dr. DuPont, he made it very clear that the solution to our epidemic lies with the recovering community, Oregon recoveries, people here in Virginia and all over America. If we would only get adequately funded, half our problem goes away. Then we're stuck with the more severe mentally ill population that has severe substance use disorders. And I don't know why everybody lollygags in that area. And if I were you guys, I would fight like hell to get that funding stream up and running.
Oh, we are. I'm fighting on all sides.
Nathan, what do you think, buddy?
I've been reading Tony's comments, through the past couple weeks now since I reached out, and it was your appointment to the Alcohol and Drug Policy Commission that sparked the conversation in the first place. Is that a state? That's a state organization, right? That's a state commission.
Yeah, it's a citizen run commission. That and its job is to make substance misuse services more effective across the state by developing a strategic plan, directing state agencies to conduct themselves in alignment with that strategic plan.
Blah blah blah. Yeah. Well, no, offense to cut you off, but I could hear it in your voice. My question is, now we have similar things here in Virginia, of course, and you're the chair of this. This is amazing to me because you're a person with lived experience who's in recovery, long-term recovery, who's actually the chair of this commission.
It's going down. I'll tell you, there was some people who were not excited about me getting elected as chair. I'll tell you what, it's going down.
Are there other people in recovery on the board on that commission?
Yeah. There's a couple other people, and so I'm trying to get the OG here, Eric Martin, on the board. I need his big brain because he has all like John and stuff. Like they have all the information over time, and you need that sometimes. But yeah, there's some people on there. We're beefing it up, man. I'll tell you what, I won't stop until things are right, man. And the time, I'm lucky because like a lot of people paved the way to get to where we're at, to where like some real change can start happening now. And so I'm just grateful for all the people who came before me who just worked so hard when nobody was listening. But now we have the doors open a little bit, so I'm gonna keep holding the torch.
Eric, I got two questions for you. One is, how has 110 affected drug courts in Oregon? And the other question is, if you had a magic wand to speed things up, what would that magic wand look like?
Well, I'm not sure because, it's really only been in effect for a couple months now. But one of the things that we have observed is that under ballot measure 110, people can go get a no-cost assessment. So that would get them sort of engaged in the process, or they can pay this fine for $100. It's a $100 fine if they're found in possession. And so far, I think something like 450 people in the last report, and I think that was January, February, March, the first 3 months of the year. Something like 450 people got the citation, and 0 went to get the assessment. So out of 450 people, most of them were like, I'll just pay the $100 fine. I don't want to go get an assessment. So we have to have a way to engage people. And John, you're old enough. You probably remember I started working in the treatment system back in the 80s, and we got substantially more referrals from the healthcare system back in the 80s before the criminal justice referral system really locked in under the Reagan administration and under Bush Sr. And then when we moved into the 90s, almost all referrals to treatment came from the criminal justice system. So treatment centers lived and breathed on criminal justice referrals. In fact, in a lot of ways, treatment got addicted to criminal justice referrals. Ooh. So we have to figure out new systems working with healthcare, working with other organizations that come in contact with people actively dependent on alcohol and drugs to motivate people to participate in treatment, to get into recovery housing. And so if I could wave a magic wand, I would get funding to recovery housing. Even HUD put out a memo not too long ago saying that there needs to be a balance between recovery housing, like abstinence-based recovery housing, and housing first. So housing first is where the housing comes first and, recovery and other metrics come second. So, and you guys are probably familiar with housing first. And Housing First, it got its starts, like 30, 35 years ago. And the goal of Housing First was to go into these urban areas where there was like urban blight, take these old desiccated buildings, rehab them, at a fairly low cost and turn them into housing units for people. And sometimes they also call it wet housing. And the problem is, and I don't know if this is true in all cities, but definitely in Portland, all the desiccated buildings have been rehabbed. So now they build brand new buildings, and the units, these Housing First units, will come in at like 200, 300, 400,000 per unit, and 400,000 $400,000 would house a lot of people in recovery houses, in recovery homes.
A little vision shot here for you and anybody listening. If overnight you could have the courtroom, you would have recovery advocates in those courtrooms. So when the people would come before the judge said, "You want to go live in a sober home, or you want to go to jail? You want to go back to your cell?" Right there, you could probably think of the possibility that we could solve with that. But these sober homes, they got to be reimbursed. They got to be funded. You just can't expect a guy to go out couple houses and not get his bills paid. So right there, and addicts and alcoholics, the time to help them is when they ask for help or when they're in desperation. And there's plenty of them out there, low hanging fruit. You clean that department up first, then we dial back in on the more severe ones that are going to pay the fines, not do the engagement or the those committees. And so I just think there's so much common sense that we have that bureaucrats don't have and special interests don't have. And I think there lies the crux of a big problem, not the total solution, but you do first things first in recovery, and you help the ones you can, you help the ones that ask for it. Then you go back and get the ones in total denial, and you work out a system at that level.
John, you totally nailed it. I mean, that's it, 100%. So that's why HUD came out with that memo saying that we need a balance between Housing First and recovery housing, and then now LAPA and ONDCP, the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, they just put out this state legislation, this model state legislation where states can basically copy and paste this legislation into like a House bill as a model for funding recovery housing. And pound for pound, dollar for dollar, recovery housing is the cheapest deal in town. And it's not just to address, America's addiction issue, it's also to address America's homelessness issue.
When I hear the phrase housing first,
a great deal.
I think of Ronald Reagan's quote, "Well, we're here from the government. We're here to help." When I hear housing first, that's taken away from the recovering community resources. There should be two separate animals and not even put together in the same verbiage. But are the DAs and the prosecutors, are they still wanting to do their job and prosecute? Or are they looking to the recovering community to help them out? Or what's that relationship look like? And back to the drug courts, has any of this affected drug courts?
Tony, you go.
Yeah, we don't know. We suspected that it would have an impact on drug courts. And judges that I know who are involved in drug courts were worried about, getting people into the drug courts and helping them. But there's a big push here to get rid of drug courts and to get rid of abstinence-based housing too. There's a big harm reduction push, and so we're working hard to say, okay, harm reduction is important, and people need to have choices, but people's choices also get taken away by their addiction, and so we have to have interventions that support people. So we're trying to figure it out. We don't know. We'll see what the drug court system turns out to be, but I think for the most part in Oregon, people are ready for recovery, and there's a big debate between a bunch of us about what's the best way to get there, and then you have people who are just out to get funded, and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I won't throw any names out there or whatever. Y'all know who you are. And
they're everywhere. They're everywhere.
And then there's those of us who are, like me, I'm about getting funded and paying my employees and stuff and making a living. But I'm committed to safeguarding the system and ensuring that we create something that's the most opportunistic for people. So they need opportunity and they need hope and engagement and support.
You said a mouthful when you said that we're not sure the prosecutors and the judges and what the criminal justice side is doing. We never know what they're thinking. And here we are with 50% of the solution to the addiction epidemic. Yet all the special interests, all the funding, well, I shouldn't say all, but the majority of the policy decision making and the funding goes to the same systems that have been in charge for 50 years as the epidemic's gotten worse. And here we sit once again, put us in, coach, put us in. We can win the game. And it just plays out over and over and over everywhere I go in America.
Well, there's a House bill right now that I crafted, and it's House Bill 3111. And this would mandate our health authority to contract with a bunch of RCOs across the state, which it already does. So that part's kind of a null point. But what it does is it requires them to hire a recovery manager in the health authority whose responsibility would be to oversee recovery support. And that is a very small position, but it would have very large consequences because they would have to start looking at budgets and creating line items that are recovery support line items, recovery housing line items. And it would take a couple of years, but over time, because at the end of the day, when it comes down to funding, there's some person typing in numbers into a spreadsheet somewhere. That's the way it works out, and we need that person and we need to have the systems built up. And once you change the system, it's kind of solidified. But we don't have that right now. We're just scraping out at pieces, or maybe we have some really cool people in our health authority right now, which we do, that are using the SOR funds in an innovative way. But it's more based on a personality and a belief system than it is about, a systemic
data
response.
and practices, man. Yeah, you always got people with opinions out there. All I know is when you help somebody when they need it or asking for it, you get the best outcome. And that's where they need to plow the resources in first. That should be your first foot forward. And I see it over and over and over as bureaucratic barriers. And the house managers, they all sound good, but next thing you know, they're going to have to be master's level social workers, no criminal record. and that's how they fix it. They're doing it all over the country, man.
I know, man. I know.
They're working overtime with our money to jinx us,
That'll never happen here. I can promise you that, man. Not why Eric's here with MacBo and his 10,000.
When they did it in Virginia, man, they screwed the whole thing up, man.
Oh, they've tried doing that here.
Well, the addiction peer movement here is really strong, and I think that's the counterweight to academia. And John, you're right. For a long time, academia convinced the addiction field that everybody needed to have a master's degree and all of that stuff. But the peer movement has kind of obliterated that concept and idea. But I did a survey of recovery homes, and this was almost 2 years ago, before COVID. And I like many people, I was under the impression that most people got kicked out of recovery housing because of chronic relapse. Now there's a misnomer out there in society that if somebody is in recovery housing and they relapse, they get kicked out. And from my survey work and everyone I've talked to, that does not happen. It's if a person is in chronic relapse, if they've basically returned to use and they're bringing drugs and alcohol into the house and they're making it an unsafe environment. It gets to a point where for the safety of the house, they have to put somebody out. But I always thought that was the number one reason that people were getting terminated out of recovery housing. And it's not. It's money. It's money. They lose their place in recovery housing because they don't have money to pay for rent. That's it.
That's the same all over. And you just nailed it. The sober home industry has come so far in a short period of time. We the most compassionate, generous, warm handoff people you'll ever meet. Nobody wants to lose an individual. As long as they got a willingness to recover, we can overlook a lot of stuff. But you outlined our whole process here in Virginia. And we are lucky, though. We do have one SOR manager that recognizes that value, and he's working overtime to see till we plug that leak and build up that capacity level. And I'll be honest with you, I think the criminal justice industry, they're running scared of us right now. The healthcare industry, they're running scared, and they just don't understand us. And it's like they don't want to understand us. But I'm telling you, we are the solution to what mostly ails us, not the total solution. And you guys got good game. You got a good mind. I hope you can get the rest of Oregon to pay attention and follow you guys' lead, man.
Yeah,
Thanks, John.
Yeah, thanks for that. There's a lot of good people in Oregon. It's a big group effort, and we are making good changes, and I'm really hopeful for the future. I see the tides turning, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
I see some comments flowing in here. Wendy asked, what about helping someone with a car that helps disabled people and takes care of handicap? And I mean, we got 7 vehicles here at McShin. We drive people around all day long. We're building handicap houses. So, I mean, it's all part of strategic planning,
But you need money for that. I mean, that costs money. You know what I mean? It's like I remember when I was able to fundraise enough money to buy a van, and then I look at these other agencies, and they have like a fleet of vans. They
the jails and prisons got a fleet of vans and buses, and they drive you around to your appointments.
When there's people like at the emergency room, there's like all these staff just like not doing anything, and it's like we're like overworked, and part of my problem with the healthcare industry, taking over this issue is that they don't get any training. They don't get any training, doctors and allied health professionals, dentists, dental hygienists, like all these people aren't trained, and they're afraid of addicts, and they don't understand recovery. So how are they going to take on this issue?
Well,
go ahead, Eric.
Well, that brings up another question. How are they working with the peers in recovery who are in the emergency departments? How is that? Because that's a problem that we have here in Virginia, the peers being granted access to emergency departments, but also, actually having a say.
Right, they're treated kind of shitty by the doctors and stuff. Yeah, but then the doctors are pissed because they can't get a patient to go to treatment or do anything, and then a peer walks in and is like, "Dude, what are you doing? You need to go to treatment." And they're like, "Yeah, I do." And then they just go, right away, and they can't wrap their mind around it. But we have good programs and stuff going on here, and I think it's great to have peers. But I think from a policy level, like we should be mandating healthcare professionals to take like pharmacology and addiction 101 and recovery 101 and have them meet people in recovery and hear their stories so they can build up their competence for the future, Yeah,
let me ask you a question. I see greenhouses popping up all over America now, and wet houses, greenhouses. But what are some good practices you might see in a greenhouse?
Go ahead, Eric.
John, I haven't heard that term. What's a greenhouse?
A greenhouse is a recovery house where they test you for everything but marijuana and kratom, and they kind of allow people to test positive for THC. They don't kick you out, but as long as you do well with the other substances, they're like harm reduction houses, but I think they're called greenhouses now.
Yeah, I don't think we have that. So we have we have housing first, and then we have housing choice, which was pioneered by Central City Concern, and then we have recovery housing. So it's sort of on a continuum, and that that really is what HUD is proposing, and ONDCP and Doug Polson. Dr. Doug is he's one of America's top researchers on recovery housing, and he has proposed this as well, is that we need this continuum of sort of like wet to dry recovery housing, and currently we just don't hardly fund any dry recovery housing. And that's our biggest issue. That's our biggest problem, is that we need the complete continuum. Right. So I could see the green housing, and I don't think we have that. I'm not aware of it. I could see that being somewhere.
You just don't know about it. Carol Egan asked a question. It sounds like the citation and $100 fine is working against you. in Portugal, you must be evaluated if you are picked up for small amounts. Why not copy this? Meaning make them get evaluated anyways, and then
Pretty, filled with dissent
What do you
over the
got?
last 7 years, but things are getting better.
How did you get into
Me
Oh,
too.
I started working in treatment back in 1985, and and I went through treatment myself, and I just liked treatment so much, I decided to spend the rest of my life in it. But it was just via my own personal recovery. And Tony, you too?
Yeah, same with me. I got involved in student government early in my recovery, and this nonprofit 4D was starting up, and I got recruited to be on the board, and then I met Eric, and then we just started taking shit over, man.
it's the hope shot, man. Hope gets hope. That's why we're so important. That's we get our purpose in recovery, man. I mean, this space we're in is tailor made for us by Big Daddy himself. And all we need is to be valued and get the resources. And I'm telling you, man, half our problems go away. And then you can spend the bulk of the money on the other half the problem.
Yeah, and that's long been our problem, is being underfunded. So in Oregon, 1 out of 5 revenue dollars that comes into the state comes from state-sponsored gambling, the sale of marijuana, the sale of beer and wine, the sale of liquor, the sale of tobacco. So 1 out of 5 dollars that comes into revenue into the state, 20% of their income comes from the sale of addictive substances. But historically, less than 1% of the state's budget went to treat the problem. So
it's the same all over. Back to special interest, baby.
We spend more money regulating addictive substances than we do treating it in Oregon.
Yeah, well, here's the way. This is how special interests, politicians, and bureaucrats. This is how they work. Let's take this amount of money we got, and let's spend it on the one thing that makes the least amount of sense to solve a problem. And it's like crazy the way they think and operate, man. I mean, it's good business for them, and we all paying for it, and our people are suffering. But anyways, I'm singing to the choir on this one. I know I am.
And I hope that we can keep these connections together. I've been, Matt Sutton, who was with Drug Policy Alliance, he's communication director, whatever. I've tried to keep up with him because I know that they were big on funding Measure 110. Well, or whatever. What was it called before 110? Proposition 40 something or other. Anyway,
I can't remember.
Yeah, he was. So we're trying to keep these relationships because this is the future, right? This is the future, and to figure out, like, right now, Virginia just legalized cannabis. July 1st, we have adult use legalization here in Virginia. Insane to me, and I support the bill, but it's insane to me that we're the first state here, first southern state. So, we were able to learn from all 14 other states that have done this before, what to do. And I hope get a better outcome. We'll see. More will be revealed, right? Yeah. But that being the case, we got to keep these connections. We going to see you guys at Mobilize Recovery?
Yeah, I put in an application to go.
Excellent. All right. Yeah.
Well, I think anybody can go if they pay for it and get their room, They won't turn that down.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know. So I put my application. We'll see. I mean, I can pay. No big deal.
Well, put that on the application. I'm not indigent. I can pay.
I got Eric. Eric will pay for me.
No, the conference is free. The hotel room, you can. Yeah, it's free.
So we had a quick question pop up. Fentanyl. How's fentanyl out in Oregon?
It's getting pretty bad. So what we're seeing now is an increase in overdose with fentanyl, and it's through these pills. So it's pills, they're pressed.
Yeah.
They're more socially acceptable, so younger people are using them. So it's becoming a problem now up here in Portland where it wasn't before. So it's finally starting to hit us. You think that's right, Eric?
Yeah. I think it was a bigger problem for you guys for a long time than
it's a scourge that, it all starts at the top. I keep telling my wife there's a government conspiracy in the woodpile somewhere, because how can the most secure nation in the world, China, allow such stuff out of their country, knowing that it's killing their enemies? I mean, it's just you got to connect the dots there. And between Mexico in China, I mean, I just don't see a slowdown. And in the criminal justice, they can't handle it, so we're going to lose a lot of people called the fentanyl. But you know what? We can help a ton of people that want help. And if we can engage them properly and accurately and appropriately, we solve problems.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. Outreach and engagement. That's what's important. People in recovery going out and selling recovery to people.
Yeah, double up on sober homes and don't kick them out because they ain't got no money. And this is going to be a better world. It's actually cheaper to pay for people living in recovery houses than the problems they create sleeping on the streets. It's a lot cheaper. So,
yeah,
right, and that's long been the argument for housing first. Is get the person housing first and then help them into recovery once they're into housing. But the problem is that when people are in wet housing and they start developing motivation for change, it's hard for them to stay abstinent in wet housing.
Yeah.
So
that's what happens when you bureaucratize these systems. You got to keep a lot of it authentic, non-government organization. Let us use common sense. But you're right. If you give an alcoholic or an addict free housing, it's going to be hard for them to get motivated to change. So you got to do a little better there.
Right, and the research says that housing first works. Like you said, it's cheaper to put somebody into housing than to let them stay out on the streets and do all this crime. So the research supports that with housing first and wet housing. But the problem is we have no continuum. We have no continuum into recovery housing. So we need sort of like a 50-50 solution where half of it is housing first and half of it is recovery housing. And right now we don't have that.
Well, if I were you guys, I would start, beating the bully pulpit and say, look, man, we need funding. We need it now. And, you'll be richly rewarded if you make it happen and get these special interest people. You got to be the special interest, and then make it happen, man.
We are.
If we can help you, let us know. We got a loud mouth over here on the East Coast, man.
That's your reputation.
That's what I've heard.
But we get it done too, though. I mean, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, man. I love the Constitution. You freedom of press, freedom of speech. You can petition your government. I mean, if you do that accurately, you don't need a gun.
well, we openly riot in the streets down here, so I don't know if you've been down to Portland.
I was in Portland last summer.
Yeah.
I was in Portland and in Seattle last summer on my trip around the country, and I did, what was it, Voodoo Donuts I stopped and had?
Oh yeah.
I was just there for the day, and I'm sorry I didn't get to meet y'all. Great city. I need to go back and spend more time there. But looks like a lot to do.
It is a good city. I spoke at a convention there about 10 years ago. I had a blast, man. My nephew lives there. Of course, he's probably growing weed in the backyard, but that's cool. He don't have the same problem I got. God bless him, man. Well, come on, man. It's your show. What are we doing?
Yeah, what's going on?
What's going on, guys? So, before we take off and say goodbye here, I just want to give both of you one last opportunity to say anything that you want to share with us, tell us about. I see. I was looking at this. You were out with your. I'm on your Facebook page right now. Tell me who are the Blazers? That's my question.
Blazer. That's the 6th.
Because that's the word
right now, man.
It's what?
That's the 6th seed right now in the West, man.
I'm wading into sports here, and I have no idea where I'm going.
Oh,
I thought it was the new kind of weed they were growing.
That was my confusing. I mean, you're with your sponsor to a Blazer game, and I'm like, wait a second, hold on now.
That's that greenhousing, man. That's talking about the Blazers here. It's the Portland Trailblazers, man.
We do got you journalism here.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to share with us, guys? Either one of you?
I would just say that, I think what I see happening, to the recovery community is there's some fragmentation, that's happening and people fighting over what recovery means. And is it abstinence based? Is it harm reduction based? What is the best methods? Is it, abstinence housing? Is it this? Is it that? And I think what people don't understand is that they actually have the same goals. So they have the same goals, which is to save lives and help people be better. They just have, differing and sometimes diverging opinions about how to get there. And so I just encourage people, not to get so stuck in their camp or what they believe is right, and to learn to work together, because it's probably kind of a mixture of stuff that's actually going to really help everybody.
Yeah.
Cool.
Excellent. Eric, any final words?
Yeah, I just want to tell people, whatever state you're in, look up the Model Recovery Residence Certification Act from LAPA. And LAPA is LAPPA. It's the Legislative Analysis and Public Policy Association. And it's model legislation for states to fund recovery housing.
Touche. I like that closing thought.
Yeah, that's a good one. John, anything you want to end with?
No, man, it's a cool afternoon. I'm glad to chat with you guys and share some great brain energy together. And I look forward to collaborating in the future on whatever it is we need to collaborate on. And, I'm going to lean on you guys, and y'all can lean on us. And I appreciate you taking the time out. I respect both of you, man. Congratulations on all the hard work you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, guys.
That's wonderful. And Tony and Eric, I hope that we can continue talking, beyond the show here. So I do want to say thank you as ever to our fantastic producer over here, Justin. By the way, Justin is paying his bed fees by doing the producing right here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. See, this is how we get him here.
He's a useful, productive member of society right now.
I paid my bed fees by working here when I was a participant too. So
I'm confused because I'm not getting paid right now.
Yeah. Well, you and Eric, man, you ain't got to worry about it. He's going to take care of you.
yeah, Daddy Eric will. Yeah.
Come to Richmond, Tony. We'll let you crash at one of our places.
Yeah.
I just might, man. If they shut us down again, man.
Come on, man. Eric, Tony, get on over here.
We'll put you in the women's house, man. You'll like it.
No, man. I've been working on that, man.
Eric the defects. We'll talk about that, right?
We going south quick here, man.
Tomorrow, and this is a great segue for this. Tomorrow we have Joyce and Dixie for Women Wednesdays, talking about women's issues in recovery. On Thursday the 13th, we have John with Jill Chickowitz, and she's going to be talking about. Y'all be talking about fourth annual Night for Scott. Yep. That's right, on the 22nd. Next week, looking at Tuesday next week, man, we got Delegate Sally Hudson. Now, Eric, you'll appreciate this. Tony, you'll appreciate this. She's a woman who introduced legislation that would reclassify from a felony to a misdemeanor simple possession here in Richmond. In Richmond, a simple possession charge can carry up to 10 years in prison. So it's
in Virginia.
In Virginia,
state,
yeah. It's pretty severe. We have and then of course we have Aaron Kacharski on the 20th. He'll be talking about mobilized recovery. So you guys want to listen to that maybe. So we got a lot of good stuff coming up. And thank you all again for joining us. And I see you're about to get your daughter, aren't you? So
I am. Yep.
See you later, guys.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take care. Thank you guys for listening.
Bye, guys. Yep.
Here at McShin, we believe in the McShin way, which is authentic recovery support service providers, people with lived experience, bringing that experience to those who need that lived experience in recovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in many things to support our mission. We believe in women empowerment.
What I love most about what we believe here at McShin is we believe in the authenticity of the peer-to-peer approach.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in giving people opportunity.
Here at McShin, we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
At the McShin Foundation, we believe in helping people reach their full potential.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in multiple pathways to recovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in placing principles before personalities to help spread hope.
Here at McShin, we believe that recovery is possible and that any person seeking recovery can become a more acceptable, responsible, and productive member of society.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in self-discovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in saving lives and offering second chances.
Here at McShin, we believe you can do this.
Here at McShin Foundation, we believe that we can only keep what we have by giving away, which is why we continue to help others like us seek and find recovery.